Hello, you guys. I wanted to come and talk to you guys about Somalia's failed attempt to stop child marriage. I want to start out by saying a couple things. First of all, I know that in the Western world, we really harp on child marriage that is going on in Muslim countries. And we also say that Islam is a demonic religion. And to be clear, Islam is a demonic religion. And to be clear, they do openly approve of child marriage whenever the child starts their period, whenever the young girl starts their menstruation. Once menstruation starts, then they believe you can marry the child and also consummate the marriage, right? And their prophet, Muhammad, who founded their religion, he engaged in child marriage and consummated a marriage with a child that was 9 years old. I'm going to let one of their scholars speak to that and try to gaslight us.
Basically, the general narration of Bukhari and Muslim is that when the Prophet was in Mecca, when Aisha was 6 years old, the Prophet did the aqd on her. So the Katb Kitab, right, as some people call it, or the nikah, as some others call it, which is just the verbal marriage contract. The Prophet marries Aisha, but he does not move with her. Then later on, 3 years later, when the Prophet goes to Medina, I think it was after the Battle of Badr, or in that first year of the Hijrah, the Prophet, or the second year, the Prophet ﷺ then marries Aisha at age 9, meaning the marriage is now consummated.
All that said, I don't want to be on a Western high horse with this. We have whole associations dedicated to just hurting children, right? We've got NAMBLA, who keeps a registry, right, of states where men can go and sleep with young boys without getting in trouble. Also has a whole travel guide. The gays have a whole travel guide that basically tells them what countries they can go to have access to young boys. We also have child marriage right here in the good old United States of America with some of the same terms that the Muslims use. And that is inclusive throughout the Western world. Europe itself has some of the highest rates of child sexual abuse. We also are transing our kids, which I'm not sure is much better. So I'm not trying to be on a Western high horse here, but the thing I will say about the United States and the thing I will say about the Western world is if there's one thing we're going to do, we are going to engage in our debauchery under the cloak of being civilized. Whereas because in Muslim countries it is part of the religion, the behavior is openly more extreme, like openly it's okay to marry a 9-year-old.
sharcigan la leeyahay baarlamaanka federaalka ayaa ansixiyey oo carruurtu waxay ku qaangaaraysaa 18 ama 18 sidaa u taqaano. waxaa waaye annaga haddaan nahay muslimiin, muslimaad, mu'miniin, mu'minaad nama khuseeyo. waxaa dhacay annagu waxaan aaminsannahay shareecada islaamka oo warka allah ah iyo warkii nabiga calayhi salaatu wasalaam. taas ayaan aaminsannahay. sharcigaanuna oo ah inay ciyaalku ku qaangaarayaan 18 sano shareecada islaamka waa baalmarsan yahay, wuu khilaafsan yahay, waa ka soo horjeedaa. saa darteed annaga nama khuseeyo muslimiin, muslimaad, mu'miniin, mu'minaad haddaan nahay nama khuseeyo. cod dheer ayaana ku sheegayaa inuusan na khuseyn. maxaa dhacay shareecada islaamka ayuu ka soo horjeedaa. maxaa dhacay shareecada islaamku waxay leedahay waxaa waaye waxaa lagu qaangaarayaa calaamado la yidhaahdo calaamadaha qaangaarka. gabadhu haddii dhiig isku aragto iyadoo 9 sano, 10 sano, 11 sano jirto, haddii dhiig caada isku aragto way qaangaartay. sidoo kale wiilka haddii uu riyoodo oo isku arka asigana waxaa waaye biyo uu isku arka asigana wuu qaangaaray asoon weliba
openly men crying and in tears because they just even attempted to a law that would stop them from marrying children.
waxay u ahayd maalin mugdiya, maalin madow ah. dalay Soomaaliya waxay u ahayd maalin mugdiya, maalin madow ah. shalay baartalay Soomaaliya waxay u ahayd maalin mugdiya maalin madow ah shalay baarlamaankii wuxuu u soo saaray ama uu go'talay Soomaaliya waxay u ahayd maalin mugdiya maalin madow ah shalay baarlamaankii wuxuu u soo saaray ama uu go'aan ku gaaray wax la aqbali kara ma aha annaga muslim baan nahay boqol muslim baan nahay Soomaali ilaahay laga cabsado arrintan arrinka hortag u baahan waaye aabay culimadeena Soomaaliyeed aabay culimadeena Soomaaliyeed waarithal anbiyaa baa tihiin idinka hadal maqalnaa maxaa dhacay maxaa loogu aamusan yahay arrintan aaway sheekh sumow aabay ma noola miyaa aabay sheekh shaakir ma noola miyaa war aabay culimadeena ilaahay ka cabsan war ilaahay ka cabsan ilaahay u laabano sheekh maxamed maalin abshir aabay sheekh nuur cali jimcaale aabay war ilaahay ka cabsano sheekh cabdirasaaq ashari aabay war ilaahay ka cabsano war ilaahay ka cabsano arrintan arrin la aqbali kara ma dadkan waana rogayaan ilaahay ka cabsano war ilaahay ka cabsano ilaahay ka cabsano arrimahan laga hortago arrima la aqbali karo ma aha 18 sano gaalay u qoran tahay caruurtooda ku qaangaaraan annaga inaan ku raacno ma aha nabiga sallallahu alayhi wasallam khaalifal mushrikiin buu nafaray inaan mushrikiinta khilaafnaana la faray ilaahay ka cabsano war ilaahay ka cabsano.
We're able to get these salacious videos and pictures out of these Muslim countries because openly this is just going on. Openly, parents agreeing to sell their young girls to old men. We are able to really use them as a shining example of the cloak and dagger behavior that goes on in the West and the overt behavior they're engaging in because it is the foundation of their religion. Whereas child marriage is not a foundational part of the Christian religion, and Christianity is prevalent throughout the Western world. So with that said, I do want to get into this video, but I just wanted to give that caveat because in a country where underage pornography is so popular, barely legal, all of that kind of thing, I don't want us to sit here and pretend as if we are collectively in the Western world on a moral high horse. Also, I want to say I am still sick. So if I'm swallowing a lot, I have just a lot of drainage situation. So it is what it is. So let's go ahead. I want to just take a moment from commentary and let the people speak for themselves. And then I will come back with more commentary. But to be clear, we are about to enter a gaslighting session 101. And also, before I get to it, this has also made me want to I have to reach out to the brother I was talking to. He and I carried on conversations, I want to say for a year and a half. And I really want to do a series conversations with a black man. I have to tell you, the reason I'm bringing this up now is the thing that ended these conversations was conversations about grown men having relationships with underage girls and going to countries where, like, intentionally, black men specifically, intentionally traveling to countries where they could have access to children. Editing Irene here. I think I should clarify when I say I was talking to, it was not romantic. I'm sorry, you guys, I'm sick. This individual was subscribed to my Patreon. And depending on the level that you guys are on in my Patreon, you can have different levels of engagement, right? So that could be just getting additional content. That could be having a direct email, which everybody that subscribes to my Patreon gets. That could be on our higher levels, phone conversations, Zooms, private lives, and things like that. So supporter of mine for many years, right? Before Patreon and within Patreon. And as soon as the conversation devolved and he realized how disgusted I was pretty much done. But I think he knew that I was pretty much done. I've not heard back from this brother since. And so obviously I have record of all those conversations. Like, they were written, you know what I mean? And so I can literally go back and like read his words. And I just wanted to clarify that because somebody somewhere, somehow is going to misinterpret the words that are coming out of my mouth. So I wanted to clarify that. Even if, they're trying to say, 14, 15, look, children. And kind of saying if it's legal in that country, then it's okay. As if there's just like a lot of things are legal in a lot of countries, but it doesn't make it okay. And that actually ended up being the final straw. Like, I vehemently am disgusted by that. And I think he knew that it was disgusting, and him defending it, I think he understood that I also thought he was trying to get me to hear the person out and all of this. Now, this is partially on me because I spent a long time being very disturbed by our conversations. They weren't about sexuality, like intimacy. They were about just political positionality. I don't really want to go in. Let me just say that if I did not have healthy relationships and wonderful examples of Black men who are intelligent and, yes, moneyed and active in the community and who love Black people, Black men who work very hard, and a Black man like that was an experience that I had, I would definitely, like, God forbid, Cynthia G ever got her hand on those conversations. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That would give her content from Here to Kingdom Come. I love you, Sin, but it would. But I kind of want to do a series, Conversations with a Black Man. I'm going to reach out to him and ask if I keep him anonymous. But, I haven't done it because I would never take conversations I have with somebody privately and expose those for content without permission. And I also just I'm curious if he's okay with it, if I keep it anonymous. I've been wanting to do this for years. And because of that, the thing that broke our discussions was literally on grown men with children. That was the break. That was the last discussion we had. And at that point, I was really over it. Like, it was reaching a precipice where I just, that was the straw. Like, I could deal with all the other stuff. I mean, I was disappointed. I was saddened by a lot of what I was hearing. I think I was shocked. I was in shock. I think because I had such positive experiences that it was like a complete, 180. It's like 180, like the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the other polar. Anyway, so because the breakdown was on this topic, and they weren't even talking about marrying the child, they just want to have sex with the children. Because the breakdown was on this topic, I think that's why it's on my mind. And this is a Western Black. So I think I want to be clear that as I go into this, Islam is evil, yes. The foundation, one of the foundations of their religion, the thing when you hear them saying fear Allah, that they are speaking about fear Allah, keep marrying kids. Okay. So we are about to enter a master session in gaslighting, but I just want to be clear that I'm not saying the West is superior in this regard. We are not superior in this regard. We like the idea of peddling child flesh. We like to make movies where the characters are teens but engaging in sexual behavior. We in the West promote the desire for children. On the surface, we openly promote the desire for children, and we also allow access to children with parental consent in most of the states. And at the same time, because legally, with, the caveats that the parents can consent to otherwise, we say we have laws where you can only marry at 18. So we have the appearance of good, because this is really like the hallmark of the West. We have the appearance of good, but under the surface we have a culture that is very similar, a culture that makes it salacious, this idea of having access to somebody that's barely a child, a culture that legally allows marriage to children as young as 14 in the United States and throughout the West, a culture that creates movies like, Brooke Shields was known far and wide for participating in movies that sexualized children. It became porn, in essence, for adults to consume. The teeny bopper movies we make with adults that look very much like children, the pornography industry, like I said, we're not on a high horse. All right, editing Irene here again. I noticed I sound a lot further away in these edits, and that is because I was at the stables earlier. Now I'm at Kung Fu. So I'm being the chauffeur today. And so I'm a little bit further away and my setting is a little bit different. But with that said, I want to point out something else too. And that is that, and you guys know that I'm nothing even remotely close to being a feminist. But something I want to point out is when there are whole countries in the world, such as Somalia, because we still haven't talked about the law. I've still got to get to that, right? When there are whole countries in the world like Somalia and Afghanistan, where the law is a 60-year-old man, a 30-year-old man, a 20-year-old man can marry a 9-year-old and consummate the marriage. So there's sex with the child, right? And when we live in a country like in the United States or the Western world, where there's extremely vile behavior. I mean, you guys have seen some of the content I've put forth. We know the pornography industry is fueled on the desire of men and things like that. When we look at the big picture of the world, we look at homosexuals being more likely to molest children, and specifically male homosexuals, right? And then we have the feminists. We have the feminists who hate men, and then everybody treats them like there's no basis for this hatred. I think that it becomes a dishonest conversation. To me, it's the equivalent, even as a conservative, of pro-choice, but not being social safety net or support of mothers positive. It's the equivalent in my mind of being a conservative, which I am, and saying you're Christian, but not believing in charity or compassion or welcoming strangers. Now, again, don't break the laws. Don't be coming in our country illegally. But my point is that, it's the equivalent of white people who say, that there is no racism, or, it's just this random guy named Bubba in the middle of nowhere. It's the equivalent of that. It becomes disingenuous. And I think that is why we can't progress. Like, if we could just admit that the situation is a little bit screwy, then we'd probably get further in our discussions. But as conservatives, our blanket desire to just pretend like, I don't understand why these crazy women, I think that's very difficult. Myself, I don't allow my daughters to watch regular media for this reason, because I didn't want them to grow up with the conditioning of every time they turn on a movie, a woman's half naked or being treated like a piece of meat. Every time there's a commercial, just women as sexual objects, constantly bombarded with that from childhood, is how we are able to have whole countries where you can sell your daughter. Your daughter has value. Your family's hungry. Sell a kid. Go sell your little girl. that little girl has value. I hear on the internet, in the darker spaces, the darker men's spaces, they are angry that women have intrinsic value. Like women are just born valuable. Men have to earn their value, is what they say. I mean, is this the value? Like men want to have sex with women, and that younger women are more valuable. The younger, the better, right? This is the space, when I talked about that brother earlier, that's the space that he was coming from. And their argument, is younger is better. And then, in other arguments, they're like, it's legal in another country. So if you're in the country and you're doing what's legal, then what's the problem, right? So when we pretend as if we don't understand where this hatred of men, this hatred is coming from, this is not even exclusive to a religion. I think we have to be honest in our conversations as conservatives, because if we are not honest in our conversations as conservatives, we can't actually progress forward. And more importantly, especially for my Christian conservatives, we cannot address the very real issues of sin that are really behind a lot of these ideologies. Right? The issues of sin that allow these things to be prevalent in our society. The issues of sin where we're calling ourselves a Christian nation. And I mean, this makes me think of the Charlie Kirk video I just made, where we call ourselves a Christian nation and we've got the debauchery going on. I mean, I went to a rodeo with the kids, and on one hand it was got this, country this, country this. And the next thing you knew, there was a truck coming by with half-naked girls advertising beer. Like, make it all make sense, right? The hypocrisy is going to get us every time. Anyway, rant over. Let's get back to the video. However, men are not openly crying over not being able to marry and have sex with 9-year-olds in the West. Like, the Christianity is barely keeping the reins, right? This appeal to Christianity, the foundation of Christianity, is barely keeping the reins on the perversion of the West. Whereas in the Muslim countries, the reins are off. I mean, they are off, completely off.
Breaking news. This is huge. Somalia has gone left. Somalia has gone liberal. This is bad. This is really, really bad. Let me explain. With these new laws, Somalia will no longer be 99.9% Muslim. The government is pushing a new law of freedom of religion, meaning in the future you may see Somali Christians, Somali agnostics, Somali Jews, and even worse, Somali atheists. And they will also not be allowing marriages under the age of 18. So out with Islam and in with Western-made laws.
And they're openly off within the Muslim countries. And then when they're presenting for the Western world, they try to gaslight us because we're like, whoa. And I think really when we talk about the higher ups and the people that are being problematic, like visibly problematic, who, are engaging in sex travel to a lot of these countries, they are also, the people that like to go to Thailand and, they're like going to all these countries. There are some tourist spots for Western men where if you're going there, I'm side-eyeing you. Like, I know that you're a freak. But with that said, I don't want to pretend like the people who are going against this don't have their own agendas, but I don't have an agenda. So that's why I gave my caveats. I don't have an agenda. I don't have a desire to acquire the oil in some of these countries. I have a care for the children that are involved. I have a care for the souls of people that are involved. And I also have a healthy level of shock and horror at the fact that, my goodness, seriously? You're crying because you can't marry a 9-year-old, and they overturned the law like immediately, you guys. So I'm going to show you all the video first, and then I'm going to talk about this law that could not even last for 24 hours before they overturned it, because the men, they were not having their access to little girls taken away. Okay, that's what they weren't going to do. And the political spin has been insane. Let's get into it.
That would be a violation of people's rights if you were to increase the age of marriage. So Islam was a practical religion. Islam said the age of marriage can start at 9. It can with the permission of the guardian. See, This is one reason why the permission of the guardian in Islam is mandatory. Some people today are asking, well, this is discrimination. How come a girl needs her father's permission? Look, when you're 9, 10, 11, you don't know what's good for you. You're a child, right? Even if they were more mature than maybe kids these days, but you're still a child. So you need your guardian to approve the marriage, because now your father knows what's good for you and what's bad for you, what's in your interest. He will protect you from being taken advantage of, from being exploited.
With that said, I'm just cutting in here because the clip that I just used, I want to say in full transparency, this is a gaslighting session. So he's speaking about the Prophet Muhammad marrying Aisha at the age of 6, consummating the marriage at the age of 9. And he is saying that Islam established the practice of early marriage because, hey, people didn't live long back there, so if you didn't marry off your 9-year-old, then you wouldn't have any humans. Now, this is gaslighting. It's also unfair to do because Islam still practices this. So I am including the clip. Actually, I think, I don't know if I'll put this before or after. You'll know when you hear it. But I want to be clear that the context he's speaking in is in defense of the Prophet Muhammad. It is not in defense of the modern day practice, although he is a practicing Muslim. He does approve of the modern day practice, but the context is in defense of the Prophet Muhammad.
So this is the version of Bukhari and Muslim. Now, unfortunately today, when you see Islamophobic clips, people talking about the Prophet, slandering him, using derogatory language, and some of you may have seen some, very disturbing depictions of the Prophet. The Prophet, he's 50 years old at this time now, and a little girl is playing in her house with dolls, and she's on a swing, and they come and snatch her from her parents, and they take her to the Prophet's house. And really, these clips have done a lot of damage to the religion of Islam.
At just 10 years of age, this little girl is saved from a forced marriage. Her parents agreed to sell her to a man 15 years her senior for $2,500, but the marriage has been annulled. An association is taking the family away from the camp where they lived. After a 4-hour drive, they arrive in the big city of Herat. 3 months ago, we met in the remote province of Badghis, in the middle of the mountains. In the camp, neither Taliban or NGO were present, only women and children trying to survive. Many of the girls were being sold as a source of income for the families. Do you know when you're leaving, and how are you feeling? Do you feel ashamed for selling her when you see her crying like that?
It's because our children are starving. I have no other choice.
Si tu me montres ce que tu as fait, tu as fait tout le coloriage? Et Amina va pouvoir rester avec vous, il n'y a plus de mariage. Qu'est-ce que ça représente?
Together with his colleagues, Aziz Tawakkoli managed to have the marriage annulled. They were the ones who helped the family leave the camp.
It happened under the supervision of the imams in their neighborhood. To annul the marriage, we had to promise to help the father find a job. We had to sign a written agreement that the father must reimburse the husband within a year or 2.
There were factors that made this common. Specifically about Arabia, one common factor was that because of the hot climate, actually girls reached puberty faster than they would in northern latitudes. And by the way, this is scientifically proven, that people, specifically girls, with boys, it's not that, accentuated.
Editing Irene here again. Just so you don't go Google fingering things. Yes, it is true that in excessively warm climates, so prolonged exposure to excessive warmth in a climate or excessive heat in a climate, that girls can start their period early. Keep in mind, the rule in Islam is if she is menstruating, you can have sex with her and marry her. So, like I said, this is like a professional gaslight. Like, this man should teach the class on gaslighting.
But with girls, when it comes to their puberty and the age at which they reach it, in hot climates, when the temperature is hotter, they reach puberty faster. There's science behind it, and I don't want to get into it, but this has been scientifically confirmed. So living in Arabia, you can't compare a girl who's 9 to someone who's living in Europe. There's a big difference when it comes to the age, in which they reach puberty.
I'm going to go ahead and let that stand there because I really just want to get to what is going on in Somalia. And then we'll also talk about possibly Iraq, or maybe I'll do that in a different video because this video was much longer than I expected it to be. So, October 4th, 2025. The Ministry of Family and Human Rights Development today issued a statement clarifying Somalia's stance on the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, following Parliament's recent approval of the treaty. The ministry underlined that while Somalia supports children's rights, Islamic teachings and the national constitution take precedence over international commitments, adding that provisions of the charter that contradict Islamic law will not apply in the country. This is all about child sex. So literally the men that you saw crying earlier in the video, there were protests. The men were protesting. They were like, Islamic law, marrying babies. And for 24 hours later, they turned it over. And so this is the official political spin on turning it over. But it all ends in like, y'all can still marry a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12, 13, 14, 15. You know what? Knock yourself out. And so on and so forth. So the key clauses were the freedom of religion, right? Somali children are Muslims and the right to change religion will not be recognized. Privacy of the child, parental authority remains paramount and no external body can override it. Marriage age, the charter's blanket ban on marriage under 18 conflicts with Islamic law, which permits marriage based on religious criteria rather than age. Adoption, Somalia will not recognize adoption in the Western legal form, but will uphold kafala, which is custodianship, in line with Islamic practice. Because remember, these are babies. So guardianship of the child, marriage or not, has to be transferred to an adult, which ends up being the husband. And so there will not be a formal adoption, because that would be weird to adopt your child. So it will be kept in line with Islamic law. Therefore, you can just turn over guardianship of your baby, your child, to the husband, right? Official statement. Our religion and constitution are the foundations of all laws in Somalia. Clauses that contradict Islamic teachings cannot be implemented, the ministry said in today's statement. Broader context. The clarification comes amid a passionate debate after Parliament endorsed the African Charter, with sections of the public being men, voicing concern about the provisions perceived as incompatible with Somali society. By issuing today's statement, the government sought to reassure the public that Somalia's sovereignty and religious values will remain central in implementing international agreements, this one specifically being about child protection. Yes, sir. This is the end of the video. Let me know what you think.